Atelier Yumia was one of my most anticipated games of this year, and just this week, a demo was released for all consoles and a few hours later, Steam. So I decided to use this opportunity to give my systems their chance to flex their muscles. I'll be looking at 3 systems in this video: my main PC, refreshed with a new Radeon RX 9070 XT and more storage, my current gaming laptop, still with the aging RTX 3050, and the Nintendo Switch. Now obviously, there's quite a performance gap between the weakest PC I have here versus the Switch. That console is so big it makes the GT 1030 blush, so it'll be interesting what cutbacks were made in order for it to run. Let's check right away. The PC version of the demo launches you straight into an in-house cutscene with automatically chosen settings, which I assume apply regardless of hardware. In this case, my desktop was set to 1440p at the standard preset, which also enables Intel XeSS Balanced. Curiously, Intel XeSS is the only upscaler available. There is no FSR or DLSS option. While the game was capped to 60 by default, you do get the option to unlock the FPS. After setting everything to high, XeSS set to native AA, and enabling a 120 FPS limit, my 9070 XT was able to just about hang in there. I'd imagine weaker GPUs like my 7800 XT or the RTX 4070 would be closer to 90 FPS at these settings. I conducted most of my tests in the first open world area. With the GPU drawing 304 watts, it's very much at the edge of what it can handle, so 1440p at 120 FPS is like the best you'll get here. Then I stepped down to my RTX 3050 laptop, which would be more suitable for those playing on a budget system. This is below the recommended GPU spec, but above minimum spec. I started at 1080p high, and it already became clear that this would be unable to achieve 60 FPS at these settings. One of the biggest drawbacks here is VRAM. While my desktop had a large 60GB buffer to work with, the laptop only has 4GB, which meant larger stutters. You'd really want an 8GB VM GPU for this game. To test other settings, I had to restart the whole system in order to clear the video memory buffer. Just restarting the game lets you lower FPS and more stutters. I found 1080p low with XeSS set to quality was enough to keep a consistent 60 in the area. It wasn't worth going higher than this as we were already near full utilization. So as to say, this game is quite demanding on your system, even if sometimes it doesn't look like it should. Given what I've said so far, you might wonder how the Nintendo Switch fares. The Switch version also uses in-game cutscenes, and at least in the beginning, it doesn't look that terrible. Obviously, it's low resolution and aiming for 30 FPS, but it's an admirable effort. In fact, one advantage the Switch version has is no motion blur enabled by default. It also cuts back on depth of field and bloom effects, which are subjective, but considering how mixed the implementation is on PC, it's again not anything major. Where the cutbacks are most significant are when you first get introduced into the open world. Let's start with the most obvious detail: aliasing. No Switch game has been known for using temporal upscalers, so it's likely the Switch version is running at a sub 1080p or even 720p output resolution with no anti-aliasing used. Shadow flicker, similar to when using XeSS in the PC port, also shows up here. Then of course there's the LOD. The Switch port uses lower than PC's lowest settings for all environment details, which is to be expected once again. Load times are also significantly longer on the Switch, including cutscenes and navigating menus. Is it enough to maintain a stable 30 FPS? Not always. There were instances where I found FPS dipping well below 30. Hilariously, there is a quality mode in the graphics settings in addition to the default performance mode. And it is next to no graphical changes, so this seems very pointless. TLDW, unless your only console is for Nintendo Switch or you own a PC with a GPU weaker than a GTX 1050 Ti, the Switch port will be very niche. It is cheaper than the PC or next-gen console versions though.
錬金術師の拠点のこと。この場所、大昔も同じように使われていたんだと思う。ああ、ボロ屋じゃん。今はまだ廃墟だけど、これから整備していく予定ってことで。大昔というのは、アラディスの大災害より前か。
One thing's for certain though, no matter the platform, it's still the same game at the end of the day, and it will certainly be fun.
これでまた誰かを守れる。
私史上最高更新中。ひんやりとした温度と程よい弾力、握ってるだけで落ち着くな。